Please, do something!" The millionaire's scream stopped the airport, and the cleaning lady did the... Amid the chaos and constant noise of Grand Central Station on a freezing winter afternoon, a desperate scream cut through the crowd. "Please, someone help my son!" The voice didn't belong to a homeless man or a frantic traveler. It came from Nathan Cole, one of the most powerful men in America, the CEO of a global tech empire. But now, he wasn't a billionaire or a businessman. He was just a father watching his 6-year-old son, Liam, collapse onto the cold marble floor, blue-faced and not breathing. The crowd around them was dense. Some filmed on their phones, others shouted in panic, but no one really knew what to do. Every passing second pulled the boy further from life. Nathan, on his knees, clutched Liam's tiny frame and sobbed, "Please, someone, please save my son." And then, through the sea of frozen bystanders, a woman stepped forward. She still had rubber gloves on her hands, and the faint scent of bleach clung to her faded gray uniform. She moved past the crowd without hesitation, without asking permission. She knelt beside the child. "I know what to do." And in that moment, Julia Ramos, an invisible janitor, altered the fate of 3 lives. Forever. Julia Ramos, 34 years old, had worked as a janitor at Grand Central Station for 9 years. She knew every shadowed corner of the place, every dusty staff hallway, every forgotten restroom, every stained wall that commuters passed without a glance. She arrived daily at 5 a.m., pushing her cleaning cart, head down, as people hurried by, never noticing. She was invisible. No one knew her name. No one remembered her face. To the thousands who passed each day, she was simply the cleaning lady, a background blur in the rush of the city. But behind the faded uniform was a woman carrying a grief deeper than words could hold. 10 years ago, Julia had a son named Ethan, 3 years old, obsessed with dinosaurs, with eyes just like his mother's. He drowned in the pool of a luxury building where Julia was working at the time. She was cleaning an apartment on the 14th floor when it happened. No one was watching him. And Julia, the mother juggling 2 jobs and 3 children, couldn't get to him in time. Since that day, Julia had lived wrapped in guilt. The sound of running water made her chest tighten. Seeing a child fall sent a jolt of panic through her spine. But instead of letting grief consume her, she faced it. Julia began learning first aid. She took free courses at the community center, practiced CPR and the Heimlich maneuver. She watched hundreds of YouTube videos, trained on dummies at local nonprofits, and even kept a notebook where she wrote down every life-saving technique, step by step. "I lost 1 child," she would whisper to herself. "I won't let anyone else lose theirs." No one at the station knew her story. No coworkers had heard of Ethan. Julia never spoke of him. She didn't need to. They just knew she was the first to arrive, the last to leave, and cleaned every restroom like it mattered. For 10 years, she followed every protocol religiously. Every wipe, every scrub, an unspoken act of penance. And then, on that freezing winter afternoon, while she was scrubbing the East Wing restroom floor, she heard a scream that cut through bone. A father crying out for his child. A sound she knew far too well. Julia stood up instantly. Her gloves were still on. Her shirt still smelled of bleach, but her heart already knew exactly what to do. Nathan Cole, 40, was a regular on the covers of Forbes and Bloomberg. He was the founder and CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech company. People called him the mind-revolutionizing artificial intelligence, the software king, the man shaping the future. But that day at Grand Central Station, he was just a father, completely alone. Nathan had just returned from a long business trip in London, where he finalized a major international deal to deploy early Alzheimer's diagnostic software in U.S. hospitals. He had everything: money, power, prestige. But the most valuable thing had been taken from him 3 years ago: his wife, Claire. Claire died in a car accident while driving to pick up Liam from preschool. Nathan had been in Tokyo for a summit at the time. He still asked himself, if he had flown home a day earlier, would things have been different? Since that day, Liam was his whole world. The 6-year-old boy, with deep brown eyes and a habit of asking questions too big for his age, was the last remaining light in Nathan's life. That afternoon, after 4 hours of train delays due to a signal failure, Liam grew restless. He slipped out of his leather seat in the station's VIP lounge and started darting around the hallways, playing hide-and-seek behind the marble columns. Nathan, distracted by a call with a Berlin investor over a stock drop linked to a software glitch, didn't notice. Just a few minutes, just one phone call. That was all it took for Liam to disappear from his sight. Liam darted through the wide hallways of Grand Central Station, his small legs racing with excitement. The 6-year-old boy was mesmerized by the world around him, the colorful uniforms, the booming announcements, the rush of strangers weaving past like a living river. Near a small store by the duty-free section, Liam stopped. Another boy, around his age, was playing with a strange-looking toy, a tiny silver magnet the size of a coin, stuck to a colorful plastic strip. The other boy dropped the magnet to follow his arguing parents. Liam, curious like all children, picked it up. It looked like candy. He popped it into his mouth. The magnet slipped instantly, and in the blink of an eye, it lodged in his throat. Panic hit like lightning. Liam's eyes widened. He clutched his neck, trying to scream, but no sound came. His lips turned blue. People began noticing. A woman shouted, "A child's choking!" The crowd swarmed. One person offered water. Another smacked his back. But no one really knew what to do. Liam's tiny body convulsed on the cold floor. Life was slipping away. Nathan finally realized Liam was gone. Dropping his phone, he raced out of the lounge, yelling, "Liam! Liam!" A staff member pointed toward the commotion. Nathan fought his way through the crowd, gasping until he saw his son, limp, lifeless, surrounded by people filming with their phones. Not one paramedic, not one doctor. Just silence and fear. Nathan collapsed beside him, sobbing. "Please, someone help him." And then Julia stepped in. She pushed through the crowd, shouting, "Move! I know what to do!" Her voice sliced through the panic. People parted instinctively. Julia dropped to her knees, scanning Liam's condition in seconds. He was blue, not breathing, eyes rolled back. "He's choking," she said calmly. "I'm doing the child Heimlich maneuver." Nathan looked at her, didn't know her, didn't care. This woman was his only hope. "Please, do anything." Julia positioned Liam face down along her forearm, tilting his head downward. With her free hand, she struck his back 5 times, firm, precise, between the shoulder blades. Nothing. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "He's not responding." Julia didn't flinch. She flipped Liam over, placed 2 fingers below his sternum, and pushed 5 times in sharp compressions, her movements practiced, exact. On the 3rd push, the magnet shot out of Liam's mouth, clinking onto the tile floor like a silver bullet. Liam gasped, then coughed, then cried. He was alive. The station erupted. Some people cheered. Others cried. Nathan held his son, clutching him like he'd never let go again. "Thank God. Thank you. Thank you." He turned to Julia, still kneeling, sweaty, trembling from adrenaline. "You just saved my son's life." Julia nodded, her voice quiet but firm. Any mother would have done the same. She stood, ready to return to her mop and bucket. But fate, from that moment forward, had a very different plan. 3 days had passed since the incident at Grand Central Station, but Nathan Cole couldn't stop thinking about the woman. He'd read hundreds of articles, received thousands of emails from partners, investors, and media. The rescue video had gone viral, millions of views, hundreds of thousands of comments. But the only thing Nathan cared about wasn't public opinion. It was, who is she? He didn't know her name, didn't get the chance to ask. He couldn't remember her face clearly, just the calm in her eyes, the hands trembling from adrenaline but steady in action. With his influence, Nathan requested the station's security department to provide a list of all janitorial staff working that day. It took only hours to find her. Julia Ramos, 34, afternoon shift, 9 years of spotless work. Perfect record. He traced her address and drove through the pothole-lined streets of the Bronx, a neighborhood he'd never stepped foot in. His sleek SUV turned heads on every corner. Julia was hanging laundry behind her small house when she saw the car stop. She watched Nathan step out, dressed like he'd walked off a fashion cover. She froze, still holding a clothespin in one hand. "Ms. Julia Ramos?" Nathan called gently as he approached. "I'm Nathan Cole. You saved my son's life." No other explanation was needed. Julia nodded slightly, still stunned that this man, who could probably hire a helicopter to thank her, was standing in her yard, among laundry lines and the scent of detergent. Nathan didn't waste time. "I want to offer you a job." Julia's eyes narrowed, cautious. "I don't want to be on TV or sign anything weird." "It's not that," he shook his head. "Liam, he won't eat, won't sleep. He keeps talking about the lady who saved him. He calls you the Gray Angel." Nathan paused, then continued. "I want you to come live with us, be Liam's personal caregiver, a support figure. The salary would be 15 times what you earn now." 15 times. Julia almost laughed. Surely she misheard. "I'm just a train station janitor. You don't have to repay me with your life." "I'm not repaying you," Nathan said softly. "I'm begging you." The words hit her like a wave. He continued, "My son feels safe with you. And I believe you didn't just save him once. You can help him keep living without fear." Julia glanced around. The rundown house. Her 2 daughters bent over homework beneath a dim yellow light. She had never dared dream of another life. Until now. After Nathan left, Julia sat silently on the old wooden chair in her kitchen, hands tightly clasped together. His offer echoed in her mind, a new job, a different home, a salary she couldn't even imagine. But along with it came a world she'd never stepped into, a world that didn't belong to someone like her. She was scared. Was she fooling herself? Could she really trust a man with so much power? The door creaked softly. Sophie, Julia's eldest daughter, stepped in holding a cup of milk and gently placed it in front of her mother. "I heard," Sophie said quietly. "Mom, this is our chance to change everything." Julia looked up. Her daughter's eyes didn't just hold hope, they held certainty. The dreams of a girl who had never known what comfort really meant. Bella entered too, nodding. "I know you'd never accept anything that wasn't honest, Mom." Inside Julia, something shifted. A small door quietly opened. And just 1 week after that offer, Julia said yes. Not for the money, not out of gratitude, but because of the way her daughters looked at her, as if for the first time, life could actually get better. The black SUV rolled out of the Bronx on a gentle spring morning, carrying Julia and her daughters into what felt like another world. Westchester County, a green, quiet suburb where white fences lined the streets and mansions stood like museums. As the iron gates opened automatically, Sophie whispered, "Mom, this place is bigger than our whole neighborhood." Bella said nothing. She pressed her face to the window, trying to see where the house ended. The Cole estate looked like something from a dream. White stone facade, towering glass windows, and a garden that resembled a private park. Julia stepped out of the car, suddenly aware of every scuff on her shoes, as if each step might leave a mark she couldn't take back. Nathan greeted them at the entrance, wearing a navy polo and jeans, an awkward attempt to seem casual. "Welcome to your new home," he said, opening his arms. The word home sounded so foreign, Sophie glanced at her mother to make sure she'd heard it right. Julia smiled faintly, but her heart was a whirlwind. Inside, the awe only grew. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, twin staircases, carpets thick like clouds. The living room alone was larger than their entire old apartment. They were greeted by Mrs. Margaret, the longtime housekeeper. Her eyes scanned Julia from head to toe, not unkind, but unmistakably cold. "I'll walk you through the house rules. We have 12 full-time staff. Everyone has roles and schedules. I expect you to follow protocol." Her tone was polite, but distant. Julia nodded quietly. Her room was right beside Liam's, a spacious suite with its own balcony, soaking tub, and a closet bigger than the family's old kitchen. Her daughters each got their own room for the first time ever. The first dinner felt more like a ritual than a meal. A 20-seat table with only 5 people. Every place setting had 3 types of silverware. Julia watched Nathan closely to copy how he held his glass and cut his food. Sophie and Bella barely touched their plates. Only Liam was himself. "Miss Julia saved my life," he announced suddenly, making every head turn. "She's my gray superhero." The silence lingered, then Nathan smiled. "And now she's someone who'll always be there for you." Julia said nothing. She wasn't used to meals that looked like movie scenes, not used to being silently judged, not used to homes that echoed when no one spoke. Part of her missed the old place, where meals were simple, but laughter was rich. But then she looked at Liam, beaming, picking up a piece of fish he used to fear. And she realized, sometimes discomfort is the price you pay for the chance to heal. In those early days, Julia felt like she was walking on thin ice. She learned to tell the fish knife from the steak knife, remembered that house slippers weren't allowed in the dining room, and that breakfast was served at exactly 7:30. Not earlier, not later. Every small misstep was gently corrected by Mrs. Margaret, her tone light as air but cold as stone. Julia never reacted. She took notes mentally, quietly learning, quietly watching, quietly adapting. Meanwhile, Liam grew more attached by the day. At first he called her Miss Julia, then Miss Ju, and one night, while she was reading him a bedtime story, he asked, "Can you be my mommy?" Julia froze. She could only nod, then held him tightly as tears slipped from her eyes before she could stop them. From that night on, Liam called her Mommy Julia, and Nathan began lingering by Liam's door each evening. He always had a reason, checking if Liam was asleep, asking if Julia needed anything. But truthfully, he didn't come to check. He stayed to feel less alone, to hear the stories, the laughter, the sounds he hadn't heard since Claire died. They began talking more in the evenings after Liam had gone to sleep and the house fell quiet. No more polite questions or awkward gratitude. Instead, they shared things they had never said aloud. Nathan spoke about Claire, the wife full of fire and laughter, the woman he lost while chasing the future he thought he was building for them both. Julia spoke about Ethan, the boy who dreamed of being an astronaut, the boy she wasn't there for in his final moments. Between two people from entirely different worlds, pain became the bridge. And as the kitchen light cast soft shadows across their faces, Julia saw something new in Nathan's eyes. Not the look of a grateful father, but the gaze of a lonely man learning to trust someone again. But the world didn't leave them alone. 1 week after Liam's 7th birthday, the first party he had smiled through since his mother's death, the video of Julia saving his life at Grand Central went viral. At first it was praise. An ordinary woman does something extraordinary. A hero in a janitor's uniform? But then the headlines shifted tone. Saved a life and a millionaire's heart? America's most powerful housekeeper. From train station to mansion, Cinderella or calculated move? Julia became a media sensation. Reporters dug into her past, posted photos of her rundown home in the Bronx, wrote about her son's death. One article even mocked personal tragedy or perfect PR for Nathan Cole. TV hosts, podcasts, even TikTokers debated the story. No one asked Julia how she felt. No one cared what Liam thought. They only saw a juicy narrative. Nathan's family began calling. His mother, a polished woman raised in Boston's elite circles, couldn't hide her disdain over the phone. "What are you thinking? Someone like her will never be accepted into our world." Then came the email from the board of directors. "While this is a personal matter, Julia Ramos's public presence is affecting investor confidence and the company's image." Nathan clenched his fists, furious at the injustice, but unable to deny the reality. Investors were rattled. The company's social accounts flooded with criticism. Rumors spread. Will Julia become the billionaire's wife? A fairy tale or a master plan? That evening, Nathan sat in his study, staring at an old family photo, Claire, Liam, and himself, frozen in a smile from another life. Julia entered quietly, holding a cup of tea, like always. "I saw the news," she said softly. He didn't respond. "I'll go." So simple. Yet it cut like a knife. "No, you're not the one at fault." She placed a hand over his, barely a touch. "I'm just not the one who fits." He shook his head, eyes glistening. "I need you. Liam needs you." "You need to protect your company," she whispered, "and I need to protect my dignity." The next morning, Julia left. No suitcase, no goodbye, no tears. Only Liam ran to the door, clung to her, and screamed, "Mommy, Julia, don't go." She couldn't turn around. If she did, she wouldn't be able to walk away. Nathan held his son. Julia, heartbreaking, walked out of the only place she had ever felt like she belonged. A week later, Julia returned to work at a local hospital, mopping floors, changing sheets in the ER. Every night, she turned off the internet, refused to read the news. Sophie and Bella returned to public school. Bella was teased. "Your mom dated a billionaire and got dumped." Sophie said nothing, just held her sister's hand after school. At the Westchester estate, Liam no longer smiled. He refused to eat, wouldn't go outside, and often woke crying for Mommy Julia. Nathan brought in child psychologists. They said, "He's going through a second abandonment, a trauma with no language." Nathan understood, because he had lost her too, not the company, not his reputation, but the first woman who had made his heart feel alive since Claire. And he had let her go. Sometimes, only when we lose something do we realize what was truly worth keeping. Julia returned to her cleaning cart and familiar rubber gloves. The hospital hallways were cold and long. Each time she walked through, fluorescent lights cast silent shadows on white tile. The smell of antiseptic, the beeping machines, the soft shuffle of nurses. It was all a sad, familiar song. No one here knew she had once been called the billionaire's girlfriend. And Julia didn't care. She just wanted peace, to start over. But not everything could start over. Sophie and Bella had left their private school, with its modern library, bright classrooms, and caring teachers, and gone back to their overcrowded, aging public school. Kids stared at them like curiosities, half jealous, half cruel. "Your mom used to live with a billionaire, right?" A boy sneered at Bella. She said nothing. Tears welled in her eyes, but she stood tall, just as her mother had taught her, just like her mother had taught her. Liam, meanwhile, was fading. He no longer touched his favorite fish, refused to attend school, wouldn't play with his once-beloved toys. At night, he often woke crying, calling out, "Mommy, Julia, Mommy." The child psychologist told Nathan, "He's experiencing a second loss. This isn't just sadness, it's an emotional trauma. If it continues, it may have lasting effects. Nathan sat frozen in his office, staring out at the empty garden where Julia once chased Liam through falling petals. Everything he had built, the wealth, the power, the name, felt hollow now. He had lost the one woman who made his heart beat again after all those years of silence. And he had let her go. That night, as Liam cried himself into another fever, Nathan stood in his son's bedroom, helpless. Desperate, he picked up his phone. His hands trembled. He'd written and deleted this message 100 times. This time, he called. Julia was scrubbing the ICU floor when her phone buzzed. She saw his name, paused, and picked up. "Hello?" There was silence on the other end. Then Nathan spoke, his voice low, cracked. "I'm sorry." Julia closed her eyes. Her heart twisted. It had been waiting for those words all along. "I was wrong to let you go. I thought I was protecting you. But really I was just protecting myself." He paused, then added, "I can't live without you. And Liam, he's breaking. We need you, not out of gratitude, but out of love." Julia sat down in the nurse's lounge, holding the phone like it might shatter. She had longed for this, but the fear remained. "Love," she whispered. "Is it strong enough to stand against the world, Nathan?" He said nothing for a moment. Then, with a voice steadier than ever, he answered, "No, but if you hold my hand, we can build a new world of our own. A world where no one is judged by their job, where no one is forced to leave because of status, where hearts are heard, not shamed." Julia didn't answer, but the tear rolling down her cheek wasn't from pain anymore. It was from a hope newly born. That night, Julia didn't sleep. She sat by the window of her tiny apartment, the warm glow of the streetlight casting soft shadows across a face that had endured too much. Inside her, fear and hope wrestled in silence. But Nathan's words echoed in her mind, not promising a perfect world, only the courage to build one together. And maybe, love doesn't need to fight the world. It just needs two people brave enough to stand on the same side. 2 weeks after that phone call, the media received a surprising invitation. Press conference, CEO Nathan Cole, Saturday, 10 a.m., Mercy Hospital lobby. No one knew what to expect. Rumors swirled. Is he being sued? Buying the hospital? Announcing a new tech deal? But when the cameras clicked on and Nathan stepped up to the podium in a modest gray suit, without PR staff or legal advisors, everyone knew. This wasn't business. This was something personal. This was about the heart. He didn't look at the cameras. He looked straight at Julia, standing among the nurses in her blue scrubs, her face frozen in surprise. "I have a story to tell," Nathan began, his voice calm but resonant. "Not about technology or money, but about life and love." He recounted the moment at Grand Central, the seconds when his son was dying and a woman in a janitor's uniform saved him. He spoke of Liam's sleepless nights, of his first smile after meeting Julia, and of the quiet realization that this woman was no longer just a hero. She was the love of his life. "Julia is not a miracle," he said, still locked on her eyes. "She is human, a mother who lost a son, a woman with calloused hands and the kindest heart I've ever known. She taught me that love isn't earned through success. It's chosen and cherished." No reporter spoke. Cameras slowly turned to Julia, her eyes glistening. "I let her go once, out of fear, of the media, the stockholders, my family. But now I know losing her was the real mistake." Nathan stepped off the stage and walked straight to Julia. She took a step back, stunned, but Nathan dropped to one knee. In the middle of a hospital hallway, in front of doctors, nurses, patients, and strangers. He pulled out a small box, No diamonds, no grandeur, just a simple ring and honesty. Julia Ramos, his voice cracked but steady. You saved my son's life, but you also saved my heart. Let me be with you, not out of gratitude, but because I love you, fully, honestly, and always. Silence. Then Julia stepped forward, eyes filled with memory, of long nights, of Ethan, of every quiet grief, and of the boy who called her Mommy. She reached out. Yes? Applause erupted like thunder. People hugged. A nurse cried. Liam ran forward, clutching Julia tightly, laughter and tears all at once. The cameras kept rolling. But this time, the story needed no commentary. It had all been said by two people who chose love. In the open, without shame. Love, once sown in the right place, will grow like a green shoot in the wilderness. No need for splendor, no need for perfection. Just sincerity and enough courage to hold each other, even when the whole world has turned its back. After all the misunderstandings, losses, and struggles, Julia and Nathan finally chose the most important thing: family. The wedding took place on a soft golden afternoon in late summer in the garden behind the villa. The same garden that had witnessed Liam's first steps, the quiet sunsets shared by Julia and Nathan, and the unnamed moments that had slowly tied their lives together. There were no grand tents, no designer gowns. Julia wore a simple white dress, hand-sewn by an elderly neighbor in the Bronx, the same woman who used to watch her children during long night shifts. Liam was the ring-bearer. He walked steadily across the grass, holding a small pillow with 2 silver rings. When he reached Julia, he looked up and smiled brightly. I bring the rings for my new mom. Everyone laughed softly. A few people wiped away tears. Sophie and Bella stood side by side in pale blue dresses, their faces glowing, as if their difficult childhood had quietly melted into this moment of light. The guest list was a beautiful mix. Leading tech entrepreneurs sat beside subway janitors, nurses, doctors, drivers, electricians. Everyone smiling. Everyone genuine. After the ceremony, in the gentle music and laughter of children, Nathan took Julia's hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden, where a small wooden plaque stood draped in white cloth. He gently lifted the cloth. Beneath it were the words, delicately engraved into the wood: The Ethan Foundation, for every child deserving a second chance. Julia stood still. He held her hand tightly. I want your son to live on, not through sorrow but through hope. Tears streamed down Julia's face, but this time they were tears of peace. As the sun dipped lower and laughter echoed across the garden, Julia sat on a wooden bench beside Nathan. Sophie, Bella, and Liam were chasing one another under the trees. No more hurt, no more judgment. Just joy, the gentlest kind of music. Julia rested her head on her husband's shoulder, smiling softly. Sometimes, she whispered, saving someone is how you end up saving yourself. Nathan squeezed her hand gently. And in that quiet garden, no one was on the outside anymore. They were a family, not perfect, but complete. Because sometimes destiny isn't made of grand miracles, but of quiet choices made in the face of fear. And a simple hand held tightly in a crowd, never letting go.